Today we are joined with poet and spiritual advisor and so many other things, Mark Nepo.
We are so happy to have Mark on this masterclass because we had him on our podcast not too long ago and just, such juicy content. But really quickly, before we bring Mark on, I want to introduce you guys to him in case you aren't familiar with his work. He has taught in the fields of poetry and spirituality for over 40 years. He has a doctorate in English and taught for 18 years at SUNY in Albany, New York. And in his 30s, he was diagnosed with a rare form of lymphoma, a struggle which helped to form his philosophy of experiencing life fully while staying in relationship to an unknowable future. He has published 21 books and recorded 15 audio projects, including the most recent, Drinking from the River of Light, A Life of Expression, which is what we talked about that book in our podcast episode. So definitely check that out. And today we're going to talk with Mark about tapping into your creative potential. So Mark, thank you so much for coming on to this masterclass. You're the perfect person to talk about creative potential, and we're just really excited to dive in.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be back with you both. Sure, let's go. Yeah.
Let's do it.
So to kind of jump off here and start things off, what's your definition of creativity, and in what ways do we all harbor creative potential within our experience?
Well, I feel for me that creativity is how life force moves from in to out. It's how it comes from within us and out through us, and we can engage in anything. It can be, stamp collecting, it can be gardening, it can be the formal arts, it can be just caring for loved ones. But that expression is so essential. And so in the same way that the sun emanates light and heat, we emanate light and warmth and love through what we engage ourselves in. So I think creativity is whatever whatever engagement in life allows that life force, that soul force, to come through us.
Mm. And in what way would you say that our creative potential is also connected to this journey of self-discovery, our spiritual awakening?
Well, absolutely, because when we are engaged in expressing ourselves, there's a couple of things. The first thing is that what is not expressed is depressed. So, we're taught in so many ways. There's such a manufacturing imprint on everything in the modern world that we see everything in terms of a product. Well, it's really what's more important than the art we create is how we are created for being wholeheartedly engaged. And that's more important than the artifact of that effort. So when we can be that fully engaged and be wholehearted and be present, then not only are we brought alive, but we're authentic, and we're given an experience of oneness for that engagement. So, John Ruskin, who was a watercolorist and a critic in the 1700s, he said, we are, a person is, what's more important than what we create by our toil is how we are created by giving it. Mm-hmm. The evolution and the blossoming of our soul is the real work of art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like we enter that flow state, that point in which everything dissolves and there's ultimate presence, no ego, no past, present, or future even, really. It's just like being in that moment. And you mentioned about how we kind of tie ourselves to the product of the creativity and sometimes lose our flow state because of that. I'm curious, what is that flow state to you feel like, and how would our viewer know the difference between I'm creating to create a final result, or I'm creating because it is something that's emerging within me?
Well, I think that, for me, and I think this is normal, we get involved and we all do this, we all know this. So that flow state or that time, when I give myself completely, I stop, like, when we have those moments when it feels like you all of a sudden you were there for 2 hours and where'd the time go? And that's because we have entered time and we're not just moving through it. We're not just counting time, we're in it. And that requires giving ourselves completely, wholehearted, present, leaning in, holding nothing back. And so when I'm in that, I am so at one with what I'm experiencing that I have no sense that time has passed. And then we're human, we fall out of it and we're very aware again. So for someone who's listening, we come in and out of that and it's very natural. And so, one of the things that I do now at this point in my life is, the notion, because of this, the notion of discipline has changed. When I was young, I think we're all taught discipline is perseverance. It's being focused enough not to be distracted so you can devote yourself, focus, and get things done. Well, you know, I'm 68 and I've been blessed to do all these books. I'm not worried about getting things done, you know. Um, but what I understand is when I'm here, my wife's a potter, we're here at home. When I'm home and not traveling, and we working together. So then I'm in that moment. I'm in that flow state. I'm giving my, and then all of a sudden, say around this time, in an hour we're going to meet for dinner. So now all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, if I work a little harder, if I stay focused, maybe I'll finish the poem I'm working on. Maybe I'll get a few more pages done. So discipline now is when that thought comes in, drop it and walk away because I'm no longer in my heart, and pick it up again when I can be in my heart. So discipline is not continuing when my heart is not there.
That's a really refreshing approach to discipline, and
Really
something.
takes that pressure off.
It does. It absolutely does. And something that I know that I've observed within myself, and I think a lot of other people can possibly relate to, me being 32 going on 33, I think the motivations, as you were mentioned before, our attachment to whatever it is we're creating changes throughout our life. You are a very well-published author, poet, and have done so much in your career. Yet I can think back and still at this point of my life thinking about the work that I want to put out into the world, yet being intentional, yet I want it to be seen, right? And it's from this ego soul dynamic, and it shifts slowly over time. And I'm sure that you may have experienced this from a young age to where you are now
Oh,
as a creator.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things, see, I think it's very important that we be engaged, but I've come to understand that we need to hold our dreams, ambitions, and goals loosely.
Mm.
Just because and this is one of the hardest things to teach young writers. And it was hard to teach me when I was a young writer. It's because you have a vision and you're excited to see something or feel something, or so then we give our all, and then we miss. It doesn't go where we aim. We don't express it. I remember being young and trying to write a poem, and I can see what I'm trying to write and I can't do it. And 5, 6, 7 times, why can't I do it? I see it, why can't I do it? Well, that's all changed too, because what we see, what we reach for, is kindling for our aliveness, to help us go where we couldn't imagine going. So, so back to one of the hardest things to teach young writers is that, you know, if we don't hit what we're aiming for, then it's just getting started because the work is coming alive. It's as if the work is saying to us, now that I see you're serious, I'm going to show you what this is really about. Hang on. And we're hung up and saying, oh my God, it's so far off course, I failed. No, it's just starting. So I think we need dreams and goals and ambitions, but often they don't come true because they lead us to something we couldn't have foreseen. And in giving our whole heart to whatever is before us, Our dreams may not come true, but we may come true, and that's more important.
That is it.
It's almost like whatever we are creating in that moment has its own dharma that's being born and lived if we're willing to move along with that flow.
Well, and the formula is following your excitement in that moment without the expectation of what it should be or will be, right?
Well, yeah, like not one of the books I've done is the book I started. Not one. Now, I needed to have plans or visions or an idea or a blueprint, but again, it's only to light the way till I can see where it comes alive, and to let go of it when that happens. So the word trust literally means to follow your heart. To follow your heart. So William Blake, one of his proverbs was, straight is the road to improvement, but crooked is the road to genius.
I love that.
And let me just, one more step is that genius, we all know what that means, like a Mozart or a Beethoven or some extraordinary capacity. But the original definition of genius didn't mean that. It meant attendant spirit. Everyone has an attendant spirit. Everyone, whether you call that Dharma, soul, Atman, the Holy Ghost, the ineffable, whatever you want to name it, okay? Everyone has an attendant spirit. So when we follow our heart, which isn't going to go in a straight line, it will lead us to our attendant spirit. It will connect us to what's deep within us and what exists all around us. And this is where the word genie comes from genius. The genie and Aladdin's lamp, that myth, that age-old story, in a spiritual way, what it's saying is not that you're going to get everything you wish for, but that when you can, like the lamp, the light, when you can hold the light of your life, then your attendant spirit will show up to help guide you.
I feel that resonating for sure. I feel like a lot of us have disconnected even from the fact that we are creative beings. Maybe we filled our schedules too full with a job that's unfulfilling, or we've just piled so much on our plates that we've forgotten that even something as simple as cooking a beautiful meal could be a creative process. Why do you think it's important that we who have strayed remember and reconnect and rediscover our power as creative
Create
beings?
space for that.
Well, it's very important for several reasons. And first unto ourselves, it's how, and first off, everyone strays. Mm-hmm. Everyone. I don't believe in an arrived state of enlightenment. I mean, maybe it happens. Maybe the Dalai Lama is like that all the time, but that's not been my experience on Earth. I'm clear and then I'm confused, and I think medieval monks, when asked how they practiced their faith, said by falling down and getting up. I love that, and so we all stray, and then therefore we all have to have a practice of return, whatever that means for each of us. So one of the real values of creativity, of expression, is that it returns us to being authentic. And when we are engaged in creativity, in expression, then that helps remove what's in the way. It helps make life real, and it helps us return to what matters. So unto myself, that's one reason that it's so important. It's like a return to authenticity. But for our relationships, that's important. And it's incredibly important globally and communally. So here's two kind of metaphors that are great teachers about this. The first is a biological metaphor, that is, a body, a human body, my body, your body, is considered healthy as long as there's one more healthy cell than toxic. Now, we'd like a lot more, but as long as we got one more, we're considered healthy. Well, if you see humanity as a global body, then every soul is a cell in that body. And when we can be well, we contribute every day to humanity being more healthy than toxic for today. So the second metaphor that's so helpful about this, how our inner light helps to keep a healthy communal light. This is a lesson from birds. Now birds, we all learn they sing at the first sign of light, first thing in the morning. But what I didn't know, and I learned when I did my book on community, More Together Than Alone, um, the flock of birds, wherever they are, every morning they remap their territories based on hearing each other's song. So they stay current every day. So when I can sing my song, when I can express and be engaged with light and sing my song, I help keep the community healthy. If I'm silent and I don't sing my song, then other birds or souls will say, well, that's all open territory. I'll take that too. So, and then the map, I mean, birds can't make a map, but we as human beings make a map. Well, that map is only good for today. And so I have a responsibility to myself and to my community to sing at the first sign of light. Wow.
That's really profound. And I'm just like
Both of those
soaking
metaphors.
soaking in that, because we forget how important it is. Our fast-paced culture, so achievement oriented, and wanting recognition, this and that. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and if we just remember that simply being is creation, and simply tapping into our excitement and our flow and our joy and singing that song for others to hear, we create the reality that we all live in.
Yes, we do. And so I think, I mean, there's a basic metaphor. I think we talked about it maybe when we focused on drinking from the river of life. But I think it's helpful here, and that's how we breathe. We can't. We've all been inhaling and exhaling this whole conversation. We can't just say, "Oh, we'll just inhale for this conversation." That's not going to work. Well, the heart breathes. The heart has to inhale and exhale. It has to, just like our lungs. And the way the heart inhales is by perceiving and feeling. And the way it exhales is through creativity, through expression. And again, so when we feel it that way, it doesn't matter whether what you express is perfect or excellent or good. What matters is that it's wholehearted. And if it's wholehearted, chances are it will be good. But if we strive only for excellence, we can be the walking dead. So the heart has to inhale and exhale, and so we have to find what is it that brings us alive and give our attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, there's so much to take in, and I was the same way when we did our podcast together, just really taking all of this in. It's so profound. We talked a little bit about how a lot of us, it's this flow of life of experiencing these ups and downs, and possibly these creative blocks. And so we're all experiencing times of confusion, times of blocks. How does someone go from this state of feeling blocked or confused to a state of more open and free and reigniting that flame of creativity?
Well, I think for me, and again, what I offer are examples, not instructions. And so for me, what I've learned over time is I need to slow down and be present, completely present to what, because one of the things I learned, as a long-term cancer survivor from almost dying and still being here, is that as a young artist, I was taught, regardless of the form, to be on the look for good material. This is worth writing about, or this would be worth painting, or well, almost dying and still being here, I was thrown into recognizing the miracle of the ordinary. Everything is miraculous. Everything is holy. So everything is worth painting, writing, singing, giving our full attention to. And so I don't experience blocks as having nothing to say, not knowing what to do. It means that I am not present. So like a radio, the signals are all radio station, the waves are always being sent. But if it's not tuned in right, you get static or it won't pick it up. So just like discipline is different. Blocks mean to me that I'm focusing on too many things at once, which as human beings we can do with our mind, but not with our heart.
Mm-hmm.
So come back and do one thing at a time, wholeheartedly and well. Forget what I'm looking for and give myself over to what's there. You know, one kind of metaphor and these metaphors are teachers for me. So when I stumble on them, I spend time trying to understand what are they trying to say. And so one that I'm working with right now is that speaks to this a little bit, and it's what I call the 10,000 hands. That being a human being where the being's infinite, but the human's very limited. So, you know, we all do this with good intention. You know, having the heart has 10,000 hands, and it wants to love everyone and everything and do everything and go everywhere. But I only have two hands. I can't do that as much as my heart wants to, you know. So, and in fact, if I give over to that impulse, I will do damage, because if I try to bring you 10 cups of tea, I only have two hands. I'll probably spill them and somebody will get burned. But by being present, taking the risk to be wholehearted and fully living our whole life in this moment, how can I call the 10,000 hands to enter the two I have, so that the one cup of tea I have, everything comes to bear? And when I can do that, I open up eternity.
That's truly the key. That is the key to everything.
That's the key. And so, you know, one of the things with all of the, you know, this has always been in our, particularly in your generation, the younger generation, but behind you, this, you know, fear of missing out, this sense, which has been, that's what it's called here, but it's always been a menace to the soul's journey, the assumption that life is other than where we are. So when we give over to that, then we try to be a slave to the 10,000 hands. Well, if I try harder, if I do it, I can love more than one person at the same time. I can do this. I can go everywhere. No, you can't. You can't. But what we can do is call the 10,000 hands to enter the two I have. And then we rediscover that life is always where we are. There is no there. There's only here.
I feel like I want to draw that or paint that metaphor in some way and put it
great.
on my ceiling so I always remember it.
Oh, well, that'd be wonderful to do. Try that. Yes, yes.
As an amazing artist that you are, maybe you could pull that off.
And remember, it doesn't matter what the product is. It's just the process.
So one way to as a practical way to anyone who's listening is what, you know, and this is something, and you can do your own thing, but this is one thing that I do, and I know that it was triggered through my cancer journey but for years. So I still make lists like everybody every day of the things that need to be done, the things I want to do. And the list is always more than will ever get done in a day. But what I do after that is I refill my coffee, and then I sit down and say, if today is my last day on earth, what stays on the list? What goes on the list that I never thought of? And I don't, you know, and because we're human beings, because we fall down and get up, because we get confused and then clear, I still make the list. I can't skip over being human and saying, no, I've got to get more toilet paper and the window broke and I still want to read what Rilke said in that thing that I didn't get to read yet. And then I say, if today's the last day, what stays on the list? What do I put on the list? Do I call my old friend, even though I talked to him yesterday? Well, I'll call him again. Say, I love you, even though you know I love you. I say it one more time. So that I have found that has been a humbling and a very simple practice that helps focus my heart to be ready to receive whatever's there in the day. And how I meet that is the unexpected path of creativity, because living is the original art.
That really strikes something in me on a personal level, because having had a near-death experience from a violent attack, fresh in the trauma, I felt like I lived by that so strongly. What, it's going on 5 years now?
Yeah, a little over 5
maybe
years.
6 years. I lost track, but it's like just a few years have passed, and part of me has forgotten that life can be snatched away from you unexpectedly. And so it's like I needed to hear you say that, someone who almost died from cancer, like obviously those were two totally different experiences, but there's that death looming over your head, whether it was over multiple years or one instant, one event.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a wake-up call. And so I feel like there was a part of me that needed to be reignited to remember, hey, life is fragile. So what stays on the list and what goes and what can you add?
And we thank you for sharing that. Every one of us, we have to practice reawakening again and again and again, and not beat ourselves up when we don't. Because that was one of the paradoxes after, going through my cancer journey, and I was thrown into being so awake so quickly, so urgently. And then when I was still blessed to be here, it was after a 3-year period, and everybody went back to work, and I was alone in my bathrobe in the living room. Then it was, well, how do I stay that awake without emergency forcing it? That's our challenge. That's, because love can do it as well as suffering. Wonder and surprise can do it as well as fear. And we can, so it's not that, it's not to make any cancers a disease. It's no more. But it happened to be what awoke me, So, but it could just as well have been beauty or surprise or wonder or silence.
Well, you talked about the list thing before, and it's, she shared her experience, but even from just a simplistic level, I'm a list maker. I love making lists. I do it all the time. And so now I'm going to take this practice, and this really just struck a chord with me, because I really have never approached it from this standpoint. We recently have been really following our excitement and really following my intuition of where I need to go. I see the list, but where is my excitement, leading me at that moment in time? But reframing that and asking those questions really just opens it up and takes it to a new level.
And often, lists, we make the lists. They don't make us. And somehow we get trapped that once we make the list, then we feel obligated to do what's on the list. When it's just, a technique so that we can get clutter out of our heads. So it almost doesn't. Yeah, it's a suggestion, exactly, that we create. And then it's like the 10 Commandments we have to obey.
Oh man! Well,
I would like to ask him one more question before we ask you to share any updates or anything that you got going on. When you close your eyes and you imagine every being on this planet really tapping into their creative potential and exploring and playing and singing their song, what do you see as possible for the world?
Oh, well, I see, and I feel like this has been possible. Uh, I don't know that there's anything new, but I think that every lifetime, every generation, we here being now, it's our turn. It's our turn. Like everyone, I mean, there's a paradox because on the one hand, no one's been here that's you or me. And um, every person in life goes through the same thresholds and challenges, and we get to see how we can be fully alive and loving and accepting and caring. So I think that our job is that we are more together than alone. We are, and when we can spark like that, um, then magic happens. Then the best of humanity happens, which we need, like stars that give off light through the dark. We need that. We need that for the times that we don't see ourselves or each other. And the more soul light we can generate through our love, our trust, our creativity, our acceptance, our listening, then the more powerful that will be and last longer. It will diminish the periods of time that are dark. So, one, during the Dark Ages in Europe, 10% of the European population was literate. It means 90% were illiterate, couldn't read or write. And that 10% kept literacy alive in Western civilization for 300 years. So the best that we can do by being completely who we are is to keep the literacy of the heart alive. And I think that's what we're called to today.
That's quotable.
That is.
If you haven't already, I don't know. It's quotable.
Well, again, Mark, it's such a pleasure to speak with you, and feel so grateful to share this conversation with you. And I'm again just such a fan of your work and what you've put out into the world. And I want to encourage everybody that's viewing this to really dive deeper into beyond, we've talked about a few of your books, but really dive deep into your work because there's so much insight and wisdom in that.
And put in a humble way where, Mark, you express you're on the path, you're on the journey, you're flowing in and out, and that's what's refreshing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, for sure.
And I've been told that the Book of Awakening is reemerging now in January, and you're bringing that back. Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So it's hard to believe, but it was published 20 years ago. That doesn't seem like possible. And so it's January 1. It's up and available on in places now. But the 20th anniversary edition, which I'm very, very grateful for, and I've had Jamie Lee Curtis, the actress, did a foreword for the book. It turns out she's a wonderful fan, and we've come to know each other. So I'm very grateful for that. And also, I have a new book that'll be coming out in the spring, that is designed as a weekly reader. And it's going to be called The Book of Soul: 52 Paths to Living What Matters. And so I'm finishing that off. And the other thing I would share, on my website is all the places I'll be teaching. But I also, in 2020, I offer journeys for small groups here where I live in Michigan. And one is a year-long journey and you can go to my website and find a link for all the details, whoever is listening, if anyone's interested. But it's for no more than 30 people in a group. And the same group comes together 4 weekends over a year around a journey that I design. And then there's also a different format where next July, for 30 people, it'll be a deep dive of 6 days, just, all staying together for 6 days. So those things are up there, and I'm excited about those new kind of teaching circles.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's incredible, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners again will be able to go on your website, check everything out, and get all the updates that they need. And just to remind them of your website, you want to let them know what that is, and then we'll link it
Yeah,
for.
there's two sites. Is marknepo.com, all one word, and then Three Intentions spelled out as one word.com. That's a sister site that also has everything and where I'll be teaching and speaking and things.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Love it. Well, again, thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time to speak with us and sharing your wisdom. And who knows, maybe we'll see you in person next time.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Well, you guys, yeah, you take care. It's great to be a part of your good work. Thank you for having me, and many blessings with your new one.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.